What's
Yeah.
up, everybody? This is Cortland from indiehackers.com, and you are watching Indie Hackers Office Hours. On this show, we bring experts like Val Geisler and to talk to indie hackers like you from the community and help you answer questions and overcome some of the challenges you're facing. So today we have, as I just said, Val Geisler. How's it going, Val?
Hey, Cortland. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Thanks for joining. Val is a customer success expert, a content marketing, email marketing expert. She's helping me with Indie Hackers, and I'm excited to see some of the help that she provides to you guys today. So our first guest is Azza. Azza, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know.
Hi there. This is Azhar. I'm the head of the growth at UserPilot, we help companies to improve the user onboarding and product adoption with our software. And yeah, that's all about me. Shall I start asking the question that I wanted to ask? Well, again, yeah. I'm a huge fan, following your content for a while now. Also, like somehow the other, I also copy the kind of the content that you like, try to imitate what you guys are doing there, like especially the kind of emails that you send, and try to as interesting in the email like you are. But anyway, I will stick to the topic and ask the question. So I've been thinking about it. This is not kind of a challenge, but like these are two things I'm really focusing on these days. One thing is ghosted trial customers. So people who come to your app. So we have a demo. We don't have a trial. So they get a demo and they go to the trial. One thing that I'm trying to figure out is that how to get response from those trial customers in email. Because they've tried the app and they never come back after 14 days and people are unresponsive. And so this is something that I've been learning with time, that not many people respond why they did not like the software, or why did not turn over, or why did not become customers, and they just ghost and they never come back after trying the app, even they want an extension or something. So that's one thing that I've been learning. The second thing, the question that I want to ask is that how to create a brand voice. These are two topics that are very close to you, and I've been Googling a lot of stuff, and there are like a lot of guides on it, but there's no certain specific way to create a brand voice from the beginning, which could be in your website copy, in your email copy, and in your micro copy as well. And so I thought these two topics that you're really good at, maybe we can get something from you right away from here.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to start with is the how to get your ghosting customers to respond to you, the people who sign up for a demo and then never convert to an account, but also never respond to any of your emails. So I'd like to start there, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And so my very first question that popped into my head is, what are you asking them to respond to? And it sounds like maybe there are emails that are going out to them, asking them, to reply. Can you talk me through what that looks like?
So basically what happens is that once somebody signs up after 14 days, after doing the demo, so there's a email going on, automated onboarding email that tells them to, do you need an extension and stuff. And after that, after 30 days, when somebody doesn't become a customer, that customer is technically not active for us anymore. And so I reach out personally and say, hey, it's totally fine that you did not choose to use our software. Would you mind sharing, if I may ask, would you mind sharing why you did not choose for becoming a paid customer as a business to business? And that's all. That's the simple personalized one email. I also try to look at their account as well and see what they have done. And so I still don't get that many responses. This is one thing that is there. And try to be very harmless, not non-salesy, and these are the best practices that I've been learning from other SaaS companies as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think we have too high expectation of canceled customers or customers that never converted, that we feel like, obviously they know who we are as a company, like they obviously care about us to some extent. And, the hard truth of it is that they really don't. They don't have any incentive to connect with you and to reply. So you're asking for time in their day, and a very broad question like, why did you cancel, is that could be a very long answer. It could be very succinct, very short, but more often than not, those open-ended questions are very tough to get people to answer when they don't have a lot invested in it. So there are two things. You could have, more closed questions, which I would recommend. First of all, I recommend going to a survey. So they're not replying to you as a person, they're filling out a survey. That it's so much easier to click buttons on a survey and even to write entire sentences. People on surveys that I send out for my clients, people will write entire paragraphs of response that we would never have gotten had I asked them to tell me why. And it's because they're not telling me, they're telling a piece of software. They understand, of course, that someone's going to go back and read those things, but it feels less personal and they can be more honest. And on those surveys, you can do a combination of closed questions and open-ended questions so that you can ask, very specific things and then more broad sweeping statements and questions. So I would say test out moving into a survey versus asking them to reply to you. Replying to you feels very personal, and you're the head of growth, right? And does it say that in the email?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, cool. So your job is to grow this business. And if I reply to you, you're going to go into sales mode and try and win me back. And even though you said like, it's not a big deal, it's not why I'm here, I still don't trust that because I don't know you. So filling out a survey and then, having a question in that survey be like, hey, do you mind if we reach out to you and talk more about your responses, and have them say yes or no there, because then they can say yes or no at the end of giving all their responses in time. When you do that, then you have a whole list of people that are willing to get on a call with you. And you may even incentivize that call. I got an email earlier this week from a company that wanted to, I sign up for a lot of free trials because I write teardowns on them. So I get a lot of requests from companies who are doing exactly what you're doing. And the ones that offer incentives, so, hey, we're going to give you a $20 Amazon gift card for 15 minutes of your time. I'm like, well, that's more than $1 a minute. And actually, there's a book in my shopping cart on Amazon that I want. So yes, you can have 15 minutes of my time. Figuring out how you can make it easier for them, make it an easy yes for them to respond. So whether that's a survey or a more closed, yes or no, multiple choice kind of question, not responding to an actual human, and then incentivizing them with some kind of offer that does not relate to the app. So a lot of times the incentive for an interview is we'll give you a free month on our product, or even on the e-commerce world, people will say we'll give you $5 off your next order. Well, that's not very useful, especially from a canceled customer, and that just feels like trying to get in. So make it about them, and honor their time and their boundaries in asking for them to complete a survey.
Got it. Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Cool.
And so the second question was about the voice. This is, I'm generally thinking it's not related to user pilot in general, but I just want to start a process where I'm starting thinking about brand voice. And it's just hard to start, like where to start. People say, look at the personality, imagine a TV character, and then come up with a brand voice. And I just don't know where to start actually to think about brand voice in general.
Yeah, I would actually go back, doing another set of interviews. Cortland will tell you everything I do starts around customer interviews. That's it. You get so much information from customer interviews. Everything tends to write itself for you when you do customer interviews, and even your brand voice. When you're trying to come up with what does our brand sound like? How do we talk? Well, you want to look at how your best customers talk, the words that they use, the way that they communicate. Are they very formal and buttoned up? Are they a little more casual? Do they use a lot of GIFs? Are they emoji people? Do they use puns in storytelling in their language? When you ask those open-ended questions, you get a lot of true customer language. So sending out a survey to your existing customers, your best customers, asking for some feedback and questions about them and the not the product itself, but questions about them, will open up for you a whole world of language that they use. And then you do this like creepy ex-girlfriend thing where, or like our middle school kind of thing, I guess, is more accurate for everyone, is like, you adopt this persona that is something like an amalgamation of all of your customers. So when you're looking at, okay, well, this is how our customers talk, how can we be relatable to them? Well, we use some of the same language that they use, but we also do so in an authoritarian kind of way. So it's like little sister mimicking big sister. She's going to use some of the same language as her big sister does, but she also doesn't have the knowledge and depth of experience as big sister does. So it's a little bit different in that way. That's a great way to uncover your brand voice, is to start at those customer interviews and understand how they talk, what they think is important.
So this means that I just have to do more customer interviews and talk to them and understand how the normal day looks like, and just try to, what about competition, just looking at the competition?
Yeah, and then looking surveys too. I think a lot of times people go straight to customer interviews, but surveys with, in writing and open-ended questions there, you can get a larger, obviously there's a commodity of scale in surveys, right? You can get a lot done in a small amount of time. Then you have to go back through all of that data, but it's there. I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question there?
I mean, what about competition? Can we take some brand voice from competition?
Analysis, yeah. I'm not huge. I think that knowing what your competition is doing is useful. But if you're talking to your customers and they're very casual and everyone in your competition is very formal and buttoned up, then your customers are more likely to relate to you if you use the same kind of language they're using. So it's not necessarily like, it's good to know what your competition is doing and what other people in your industry are doing, but know that the customers you're trying to attract are going to be attracted to you for a particular reason. So not necessarily mimicking what they're doing, but doing what you do best and what relates to your customers the best.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. That's all from my side. Thank you so much.
A lot of times your competition doesn't have their stuff together.
Yeah.
And copy what they do, assuming that they do. Like, you might be copying something that doesn't work. I've seen so many people, even with indie hackers, ask how are you doing this thing on your website? I really want to do that. And it's like, I was just thinking about how I should get rid of that because it doesn't work. It's not good.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Copying the competition.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you so much. That's all from my side, guys.
All right. Thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, it was great. So next up, we have Jessica Ashley. I'm going to promote you to a panelist, so you'll be able to talk to Val. Once you get in here, just let her know what you're working on and any questions you have for her. Right now, you're muted, I think. There you go.
I'm unmuted now. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. Val, I followed you for a while as a content strategist myself. I have referred many clients to your emails and practices, so thank you for that. Yeah. But today I'm here to ask a question about my own sites. So I am a divorce coach, and I have a site for that, and I have a site for single moms, and I'm feeling a little multiple personality right now, and I would like to rebrand, bringing everything under my name. And in that, I'd like to merge my lists and create one newsletter, because right now I'm doing a crap job of being consistent in those newsletters, and I feel like I'm talking about the same things over and over. So I'd love some advice about merging those lists and doing it in a way that is simple and feels intuitive and right and beautiful, and how to do that without that.
Yeah, without feeling like a chicken with its head cut off.
Right.
So are you moving platforms? Are you changing your email service provider in this?
No, I am not.
Okay. So continuing to use one platform simplifies things a little bit. I think there's in email, there's so often this like, so I get asked a lot about things like merging lists or not having written to one list in particular for a very long time and then coming back and writing to them all of a sudden. Everybody feels like this need to apologize. And there's, it's important to remember that nobody knows more about what you're doing than you do. And so nobody's really paying attention, right? So there have been times where I've had clients say like, well, what if I send 2 emails in 1 week? Like nobody even knows that it's been 1 week. Like 2 days feels like a week. So you can send 3 emails in a week and nobody will blink twice. You know, it's, so it's important to know that no one is paying as much attention to you as you are.
Right.
You can feel a little bit of like grace in that. And especially in the world of email, I mean, we get hundreds of emails every day. So, you know that. In the merging of the list, I would simply do a bit of a buildup. So I would, and maybe it's 2, maybe 3 weeks. I wouldn't spend a ton of time on it, but giving people a little bit of a chance. So with, you know, GDPR laws and all the different regulations around that, you want to make sure that they're opting into what they want to have. So this is actually an opportunity for you to clean your list. I would create instead of merging 2 lists into one, I would create a whole new list. And then depending on what email service provider you're using, you're asking them to opt into that list or maybe click a link and it's a link trigger that tags them onto that list.
Okay.
So sending 2 or 3 emails, this is very similar to a cold subscriber email. And I'm clicking into my Google Docs so I can grab it for you. So I have a cold subscriber sequence, and let's see if it'll pull up. I'll find, oh, here it is. I have a cold subscriber sequence, and you can do a very similar kind of sequence. I'm going to share this Google Doc in the chat here. And it's, you know, a couple of emails sent over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. And that will give them a chance to respond, to click on something, tell them what you're doing, why you're doing it. Actually start with why and then tell them what, and then give them the opportunity to click into it. So in the case of this cold subscriber sequence, you're saying, hey, you know, you haven't been opening my emails. If you want to stay on the email list, please click here. If you don't, on X date, I will remove you from the list. And you're doing that over a period of time to allow for vacations and folders and inboxes and all those things. So you can use a similar, obviously this is for my list and my email sequence, but just to give you an idea of what this could look like, send it out over a period of a couple of weeks to both lists, give them the new list that they need to be subscribed to, and then on that day, start sending from that new list. You may, after you do a couple of sends from the new list, you may go back to the 2 old lists and do like a last call. So give them a little bit of a breather from this subscribe sequence, and then do one more last call. You know, you can choose to remove them from your list. It'll probably save you money from your ESP if they aren't going to be active subscribers anymore. And the other thing about cleaning your list in this way is that you'll have highly engaged subscribers, which increases your open rates, which increases your click-through rates, which increases your revenue potential. And it also increases your deliverability, because inboxes are seeing like, oh, all these people want these emails on this list. So so it does a lot of good things. I think people are scared of cleaning their list, but it can do a lot of good for you. So don't think about it as merging so much as here's this new list, just like here's this new website. And, you know, just start fresh and invite everyone to join you.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any mistakes to avoid or best practices and all of that? They're like, do this thing.
Yeah.
Don't do
The mistake to avoid is putting people on a list that they didn't agree to be on.
Right.
Because that can cost you a lot of money in a GDPR lawsuit. So, so don't get into that trap. And then, just honoring people's wishes of whether they come along or not. I've seen people run these campaigns and then go ahead and just pull everybody into the list anyways. Don't do that. Just let people opt in, and do it in a way that feels really true to your brand and your voice and what they're used to hearing.
Awesome. Thank you. You make it feel easy. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not easy. It's not easy to dump a bunch of subscribers, but it's way easier to dump those subscribers than to fork out the money for the dead subscribers that aren't doing anything anyways.
Truth. Thank you so much, Val.
You're welcome, Jessica. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks so much, Jessica. So Saba, you are up next. I'm going to add you. When you get up here, just let us know what you're working on and how Val can help you.
Hi, Saba. Oh, I think you're muted.
You are muted. I think I can unmute. Oh, there you go.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I gotcha.
Cool. How's it going, guys? So I'm Saba. I'm working on a simple online video editing platform. About 40% of our users are marketers right now. And I suppose the first question is, what's your format for running really good customer interviews? We do about 10 to 15 a week, and we're trying to do more and do better ones. So how do we get more value out of that?
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear you're doing that many every week.
It's tough, but...
Yeah, they are tough. I know a product manager who has a sticky note on his computer that says, "Have you talked to a customer today?" And that's, it's just a great way to have that reminder that it's so important. And if you do nothing else in your day, to talk to one customer is super important. The framework that I tend to lean on for interviews, and I guess I have a question back, and are you asking how I do the interviews, how I run them, or what software do I use?
How do you structure the questions that you're asking to get the most value?
I have another Google Doc. This is actually a drive. So I'll link this in the chat as well. So I use Jobs to be Done framework in all of my customer interviews. Are you familiar with that framework, the Jobs to be Done? Okay, so there's a couple of documents. This is a Google folder, and there's 3 different documents inside of it. So you can look through those later. But the questions that I use are in there. Questions that I use on surveys are in there. So I do a combination. I do a combination of both surveys and actual customer interviews. I use Zoom, just like we're doing right now. And I record everything, so I'm not taking notes while we're talking. I find for me, it's most valuable if I schedule 5 minutes after each interview to take notes of just right off the cuff what I remember, what stood out to me the most of that interview. But then I do recordings and get transcripts for all my interviews so that I can read through those later. I use Jobs to be Done. So the framework idea is that your customers have a job that they need to have done from your product that is not the features of the product. I use the analogy of hiring a house cleaner. You don't hire a house cleaner because they use vinegar-based products or have a 4-person team. You hire house cleaners because you want your time back. You don't want to spend your time scrubbing toilets. So that is the job that is to be done for a house cleaning service. They are more likely to get hired if they lead with, "You don't want to be scrubbing toilets, let us do that for you," then we have a 4-person team and get done in an hour. So that is what Jobs to be Done is meant to uncover. It's really focused on the customer and not on the product itself. So it's, the idea is, who is the customer? What are they struggling with? How do they make decisions? Who influences them? Where do they spend their time? All of those things that have nothing at all to do with should the button in the top left corner be green or red? Those things don't matter in this style of interview. And I think that's where a lot of founders and people who are deep in a product get hung up, is that they can get caught up in the product itself. But if you can stay honed in on the customer, and maybe some of these questions are similar to questions that you're using, but maybe there's some that you can integrate in that really get into the who is the customer and what is the job that they have to be done.
Okay, no, that's really good. Do you do any sort of like qualifying before you do the interviews?
Yeah, so I've done a couple of different ways, and it really depends on the level of awareness and connection with the brand. So sometimes I just go into direct ask for an interview. And when I'm doing that, I look at 3 different types of customers. I want to talk to those high value customers. Those are the easiest interviews to get. The like longest, best customers, your number 1 advocates. I also like to talk to canceled customers, so people who had an account for a period of time and then canceled. And then I like to talk to people who never converted. They either had a trial or they've been on your email list for a long time and never had an account. Those last 2 categories are harder to get, but even 1 or 2 of those is incredibly valuable. So that's how I qualify interviews right off the bat. But sometimes the connection to the brand is low. And so we start with a survey. So we'll do, and a lot of the questions I use are inside those documents. So we'll do a survey, obviously customized to the product itself, but run the survey to as many people as possible and ask a question at the end as to if they're interested in being interviewed or not. And then I can look through the survey responses, pull out everyone who said yes to being interviewed, look through the survey responses, and then say, okay, yeah, I do want to do an interview with that person.
Okay, no, that's good. I suppose we have like multiple pipelines of interviews. So there'll be users, and then we also do potential users, and then just try, and then we kind of like afterward the calls, we kind of like look at the different profiles and think, is that more of our user? What's the feedback from that user? What do they need and stuff like that?
Yeah, the qualitative data is really tricky to track and to see patterns in. I know you're doing a lot in a week's time, and I encourage stacking interviews as much as possible, because you start to see the patterns really quickly. Then if you have, 2 on Monday and the next 2 on Thursday and then 1 on Friday, or, those, it blends in with the rest of the work and you don't really see the pattern as quickly. But if you can block off every Tuesday and Wednesday is when I do blocks of interviews, that'll really help start to see the patterns better in that qualitative data.
Okay, cool. So like thinking about your cleaning analogy that you used earlier, so we do, it's like a video editing product, and people are Googling stuff like add text to video, when actually what they want to do is like build an audience, create great content, right?
Yeah.
And we get a lot of people about 75% of our traffic will come from keywords like this. How do we kind of like ingrain our brand more in that experience if the user's just using the product once? Like we sometimes have their email as well, so we can maybe bring them back possibly, or what's your thought there?
Yeah, creating an awareness campaign through email is gonna change everything for you.
Tell me more.
Yeah, well, because, especially in the world of video editing, we have so many options. I was just in a Slack conversation about that this morning. One person uses ScreenFlow, one person uses Cloud App. Like they all use all kinds of different things. And it's like, whoever recommends whatever thing first is where people go, unless they're Googling and end up somewhere else. So, it's really about an awareness campaign at that point when they've used it once and you want to get them to come back. It's about showing up in their inbox, not necessarily asking them to do something with the app, but being around, being that friend that's there whenever you need them, and teaching them. So like you said, they want to grow an audience. They want to use that audience but like even deeper than that, why do they want to grow an audience? Well, because they want to earn money online, and they want to make private jet money and from their videos. So like getting to that real root cause is maybe it's not even about getting a following or an audience, but it's about replacing their day job or affording a big, huge annual vacation, whatever those real jobs that they're asking. Now I'm going to create these videos to do that. That's what you can use in your awareness campaign. Create an educational series around how to get their first, 1,000 YouTube subscribers, whatever it is.
Nice idea around that, yeah.
Yeah, so, and doing that through email so that you're showing up where they are, because we're all in our inboxes, whether we like it or not. And they may have tried your product and loved it, and then they forget. They completely forget the next day. They might even forget what it's called. They don't even remember using it. And they just go back to whatever people recommend the most. And so if you can't go viral, then go personal, right? So connect with people, teach them, show up where they are, and give them what they need. And then what you want shows up next, because they say, oh, okay, here's this email and I'm learning, and I'm clicking through to a video that happens to be hosted on your website where, oh yeah, I can log in and use my account again. And I'm seeing all these examples of how I can use the account. I think CoSchedule does a really great job of this. They're kind of a bigger brand that does this really well. They do a lot of education pieces that are hosted right on their website, so that when you're ready to log, and they teach everything that they know through using CoSchedule. All of their screenshots and all their examples are using the tool. You could use those same methods somewhere else, but why bother when you're right here and you can just log into your account and use it? So that, as an example, I would take a look at some of their content marketing pieces.
Yeah, we actually just launched part of the site called Grow, and about growing a brand, growing an audience, and we're starting to think about how we make that content. But it's very early days still, so we need to kind of finesse and get those wires kind of like in line with the audience.
And if that piece is still early days, then you can certainly use your audience and reach out to them and ask them for their feedback and the problems that they're solving and their stories that you can tell. I mean, if somebody builds a video with you and then, you don't know yet if it helps them grow their audience or not. But if I build a video with you and I got, 1,000 new subscribers because of that, and you reached out to me and said, you want to tell my story, I'm super jazzed about that. I want to tell the story too. And now I feel connected to you as a brand, versus any other tool that I can use. So utilize your audience while you're in these early stages of building it out, and use their stories and their content to help you build.
Sure, that's a really nice idea. I think I'm out of time now. Am I?
The other guy was having tech issues,
yeah.
And so he just left. I don't know if he'll be back, but you have as much time as you want. And if he doesn't come back, then I'm just going to talk to Val. So,
okay, cool. I suppose like automated email, like we all have to send them, and I when I receive one in my inbox, I kind of look at it and it's delete straight away. Like I want to make them more personal. Have you got any advice on how to make automated email more personal, basically?
It's like the eternal struggle of the email marketer. I think, audiences are pretty savvy now, and especially if you are marketing to marketers, it gets tricky. But, removing the business level of things, we spend lots and lots of money on our brand and, the colors and the logo and all of that. And it gets thrown into everything, and everything gets templated. And I think it has a bigger impact when you can remove all of that templating and go super personal. Having it be Cortland from Indie Hackers, not Indie Hackers emailing, right? And using, personalization is not just like their first name, but personalization about where they are in the journey, talking to them as from human to human, connecting on a really heart level, and just saying like, hey, we recognize the problems that you're solving, and those are the same problems our team is solving and that we want to solve for you. just creating that element of, this is not just a piece of software that you download and use and use whenever you feel like it. This is a piece of your team. This is like you just hired a new member of your team, and we're here to be the best possible employee you could ever have. And like that kind of message to someone who is running a business or trying to run a business, and to lift them up and to also connect with them on a real personal level. I encourage people to use as many team members. I mean, you don't need to introduce everybody on your team, but have a welcome email from the CEO or founder. Have an email come from not necessarily the head of customer support, but somebody at the ground level, right? Who is potentially someone who's going to be answering their support tickets. If there's a more technical email about integrations or the API or something like that, have that email come from the head of engineering. And so obviously, like, your marketing team is writing them, doing all of that, but run it by that person. Tell them you're going to put their name on it. Have all the replies go to support anyways. But, creating that kind of personal connection where now they feel like, okay, it's not just this brand that is here for me, but it's these actual individual people. I think that makes a real difference. And, remove the templates, get rid of the headers. All of those are great for transactional emails. I think transactional emails work really well as like HTML designed templated emails, but relationship building emails should be about people and should be as simple and plain text as possible.
Cool. And I suppose if someone's still having microphone problems, I've got another question.
Yeah.
Word of mouth, like you were saying earlier on a Slack and someone recommended a tool, right? That's, I suppose, not word of mouth. I suppose, no, it is like you're telling a friend about it, or you're mentioning it. Like, how do you make sure that you are on the top of someone's idea list of, oh, that's the tool that I use, and making, that more transactional?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really when it comes down to awareness. Top of funnel isn't really my best place to live. Like, I'm not a, content marketer from that standpoint of how do we grow the overall audience. But I know that giving people the things that they need in order to be that voice for you. So when, even if it on that like awareness campaign level, if someone has, here's exactly why I use Soapbox over, ScreenFlow to record videos, or, why I do these things, then what it makes sense to the person that they're talking to as to, they're able to make a good recommendation, basically, to say, I know you've never heard of this tool before, but I love it, and here are 3 reasons why. And it can feel very genuine because it is. But being able to give them those kind of talking points, that's where I think people go wrong with like just wanting to throw features at people all the time, at their customers. They, you're saying like, we have this feature and this feature and this feature, and it becomes overwhelming. It's no longer awareness. It's like, that's way too much. I don't even know what you're talking about. But if you're able to say, here are the 3 key things to share with your friends, and that we know have an impact for our customers, and that, we want to know who does this. I think it's Kajabi does this. They have like their 1,000 club or something like that, and it's like they've earned $1,000 on Kajabi, and so they do an interview series that talks about what are those things that led to success, and how does that break down? I mean, even thinking about Indie Hackers podcast, like, and the interview series, what are those things that everyone is consistently doing that helps them be successful, so that you can turn around and replicate it. So it does 2 things. It helps them turn around and replicate it. It also helps them know how to express to other people why it matters.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for answering all my questions. And thank you, Lynn, for setting this up as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Abba, for joining. So James, I'm going to kick you up here.
James, you made it.
Your mic and your video works. You're muted right now, but once you unmute yourself, just
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Let us know what you're working on.
Good. Got some internet, thank goodness. So thank you, Val, for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know how. So I have two things, but I don't know if we can deal with two. So I might need to pick one.
Why don't you just
the most
start
pressing.
Yeah, whichever one's most important.
Okay, so I'm currently working on an app called InRange. It's a golfing app to use on the driving range.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with something like Strava, it's a radar-powered golf tracking app. So while you're playing on the driving range, instead of just bashing balls into the distance, you're actually seeing exactly what's happening with the ball, so that you can kind of do a real-time feedback on how you're playing and improve from that. So what I'm working on is the actual onboarding sequence for that, all the way through from initial app download to here's how to use it and here's how to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at how to structure that for maximum retention, get people coming back down to the driving range and subscribe, because it's a monthly subscription model.
Yeah. And I would assume that golfers who use a service like this are regular golfers. Do you have an idea of how often they're out?
Yeah, so really they seem to use the driving range as a supplement to getting on the course when they can't get on the course. So it's anywhere from once to twice a week down to the range.
Yeah. So you can really go in pretty regularly through email. So I know that you were having some difficulty with camera and mic, and so I don't know if you heard the other parts of this session. But it's really about creating awareness. I think onboarding is so much more about building relationship and reminding the customer that they downloaded something, that they made a decision. We make so many decisions all the time that we forget. And so reminding them that you exist. And I assume this is a phone app, a mobile app. Yeah, so you have a distinct advantage of the fact that, with most web apps, the problem is we're all reading our emails on our phones. Well, you have an advantage because they're on their phone and then the app is there too. So you can actually ask them to go into the app and do something, but they might not be at the range when they read their emails. They're lying in bed or drinking their coffee in the morning. So there's very much this golfer to golfer kind of mentality about it, creating a relationship, letting them know that you aren't just an app and a piece of software, but that you are fellow golfers who understand the problem, that if there's someone on your team who has solved a long-standing golfing problem because of using the app, telling that story, or better yet, a customer or several customers, that you can tell that story. Education points that you can give them in the onboarding is huge too. So things that have nothing to do with the app itself, but teach them about the sport, about their game, about technology that exists within the arena. All of those things will keep you top of mind for them. I have, and you can go to, in the chat, I just dropped a link. The dinner party strategy is the way that I go through email onboarding. I don't know if you've heard me talk about this before, but there are examples in that download of each email in the dinner party strategy, what should go into it, and then obviously you customize it to your own needs for your business. But an idea of, we're not just throwing features at them left and right and telling them how great our app is, but talking to them about them and their needs. And it all comes down to doing some customer interviews, understanding who they are, what problems they're trying to solve, and using those words back at them in the onboarding emails. I think that's, when you have an opportunity to ask questions to your customers and potential customers, you learn so much about them and the way that they think and what matters most to them. And I've used sentences that customers have given me in interviews or in surveys, and put them as subject lines in emails. And people will write back and say, like, how did you know that, like, this was literally on my mind this morning? Like, well, I didn't take it out of your mind, but I took it out of someone just like you's mind, like literally write their words. So I highly recommend doing some customer interviews and understanding what you need inside of those emails, and then using the dinner party strategy framework to shape the email campaign itself.
And then just, I don't know if the download, I need to have a look at it, but does it talk at all about the spacing? In terms of,
that's everybody's question for me, is like, how long in between each email? And then my answer is the perennial email answer. It depends.
It depends.
It depends. It depends on how long the trial is. You have, it sounds like maybe it's a monthly subscription, so you have a solid month of them using it before they get charged again. So your cadence might be longer. You might actually need more emails than what's in the dinner party strategy. There's 6 emails in there, but you probably want to be sending more than 6 emails over the course of a month. But understanding, that each of those elements are there along the way. I've seen people do, 2 for each category, and it worked really well. I think in the case too of, are they paying up front and then they're going to get another payment at the end of the month? Or?
No, they're starting with a 30-day free trial to try everything, and then going into
But then it automatically charges them through the Apple Store or whatever. Yeah, I think with automatic charges, it really benefits you and the customer to remind them of that leading up to the day of their charge. I know a lot of people shy away from doing that because they feel like, oh, well, everyone's just going to cancel on me. But if you do it right, the right people will stay, and the people who are going to cancel on you are going to do a chargeback in 4 days anyways. So you save yourself a lot of grief and headache in both personality types and chargebacks and time spent.
That's great, thank you. I'm going to have a look at the dinner party and just look at the breakdown.
Yeah, and I think if you weren't in here earlier, you probably can't see the full chat, so I'm just going to link you to, is it this one? No, I need to give you this one. I'm going to link you to the list of survey questions and interviews. Wait, yep, that's the right one. So yeah, I think that you wouldn't see it if, yep, this is the right one. So this is the framework that I use when I do surveys and questions, and you can take it and use as much or as little of it as you'd like.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you're able to sort it out.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks so much, James. We got 5-6 minutes. Val, you want to just talk about maybe some of the stuff you're doing for indie hackers? Or
yeah, sure. Yeah, I feel like I'm customer interview obsessed right now. I've been doing a lot of customer interviews with indie hackers and listening to other members talk about what matters to them, how they make decisions, who influences them, and it's fascinating. There's patterns and then there's ranges all over the place. And so now the interviews are wrapping up and I'm in that kind of figuring out what everything means phase, analyzing the qualitative data, putting together, looking for patterns. It's a lot of colorful highlighters and pieces of paper all over the place. But it's really helpful to know, okay, well, here's what needs to change in the product. Here's what needs to change in the way that we onboard new members. Here's what never should go away. So, the work of the interviews it's really powerful because I get to use it for email purposes, but then as a brand, you get to use it all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's been really good.
So when you say it's helpful to know like what should change with the onboarding of the product, is it like people aren't saying like we want these changes? It's more like people are giving you responses about the jobs they want done, and then you're translating that into product changes?
Right. I think the worst question you could ever ask someone is, what do you think should change, or what should be different? Because nobody knows. They don't know what that is, but they know how they want to feel.
Yeah.
So that's what it's getting at. Doing these interviews is getting at how they want to feel at the end of the day, why they're doing what they're doing, and then things that can change come out of that, as opposed to asking them like, well, what do you think should be different about indie hackers? Even saying to them something like, what would you change about indie hackers if you could change anything? That, the overwhelming response would be like, well, I don't know. But when you ask
feature improvements, like I wish this was faster. I wish this button was bigger. I wish I could bookmark this page.
Yeah, and all of those are things that can happen. But if their deeper need isn't really solved, when I ask them a question like, what is the biggest problem you're trying to solve for on a daily basis? Then we can understand, okay, well, how does that relate back to indie hackers, and how can we inform them that they're in the right place, they made a good decision in signing up, that they should stick around, because that's the other thing too. I think indie hackers and other places get a lot of signups, a lot of interest, but then people fizzle out.
Yep.
And a lot of that is just because they don't know why they should stick around. They don't understand why.
Right.
So the interviews help us get at the why for sure.
Yeah, that's like a big thing. I would love to figure out how to get people to stick around for longer. And sometimes it happens like people turn for like predictable reasons. Like my company died, I went back to get a job. I'm done. I'm done trying to be a founder. I think that happens every now and then, and I'll reach out to people and find out that happened. But for a lot of people, I think we just don't connect with any sort of regular habit or provide value in like this consistent, lasting way that we really could.
Yeah, and it's hard for companies that are dealing with revenue on top of that, right? So they're not getting value out of a product, and so they turn away. And I was just reading an article about I think it's called the Rule of 78. It's like if you have a customer that pays you $20 a month, and they turn out on month one, that's $20. Month two, that's $40 lost. And over a year, it's over $1,000 lost in monthly recurring revenue from one customer. So it's a big problem to solve for your churn. And you can do that by knowing what that real problem is that they're trying to solve. And sure, businesses change, people go out of business, they sell, whatever, they get acquired. And so that happens. But then for everybody else, like, how are we solving that problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I think a lot about with Indie Hackers is we have our regular newsletter, which is not daily, although a lot of people think it is. We send it out on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's sort of a roundup of everything they missed in the community, plus like our headline, article, or interview that we've done since our last email. And I've gotten like lots of complaints from people like, oh, this is too frequent. I can't keep up. There's it's too much to read, and I feel burned out. And so we've like introducing a weekly option.
Yeah.
But I think partly due to, some anxiety I have around sending people too many emails. Like our welcome email drip campaign is really just one email. It's just like a welcome from me. And I'm like, I don't know if I can send people, 5 or 6 emails after they join Indie Hackers, and at the same time they're getting bombarded with our newsletters. What are your thoughts there?
So I think that's where the distinction is segmenting them out for the welcome and not sending them the regular newsletters.
Mm-hmm.
So using the welcome to create a best of, or and even algorithmically there can be a most recent kind of entry. Like we can plug things into the emails that point them to more recent things.
Mm-hmm.
But and it doesn't have to be 5 or 6 welcome emails. It can be 3 or 4 over the course of a week or a week and a half. They're not going to miss that much relevancy in the community by walking through like, here's the value you're getting. Because ultimately, if they get a welcome and then they get thrown into the newsletter and it's a list of 10 top posts and all these events, and it is overwhelming. But if you know and understand why it matters, why those things are coming your way through a welcome sequence, and each section is kind of broken out, like, okay, on day 1 of the welcome, we're going to talk about the community aspect. And then on day 2 or the second email, we're going to talk about the podcast. And because that's the other thing in doing these interviews is, you know, a lot of customers don't interact with all parts of indie hackers, or they don't even know that other things exist.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like we're talking about features now, but talking about them from a standpoint of how it's going to benefit them. And spending a week and a half to do that can set them up for more success long-term with the ongoing newsletter, especially when it's 3 times a week.
Yeah. The other, it's funny that you say that, because I've sent out a lot of surveys in addition to the 2 that we sent out. I was reading through the responses and the responses to yours as well. And it's all over the map, like the value that people want to get out of indie hackers, or the parts that they interact with. Like, we're not very focused. And so I see a lot of people talking about how they come here for inspiration and motivation, like to believe that they can succeed, or when they feel down, you know, they keep going because they see other founders doing it. I see a lot of people say they come for like advice and tips and tricks. You know, it's like more of an educational focus, and it makes it hard to know, like, okay, well, what's the next step, right? What's the most important thing to work on, right? Like, and in my mind, I kind of divided into 2. Like, okay, what value do you get out of indie hackers? Like, why do people get excited about indie hackers and come back? And then the other set of questions that I think a lot about is I ask people, you know, what are your biggest challenges and anxieties with your business? Because you guys are all founders or want to be founders. Like, what are your challenges there? And it's 2 different sets of answers. One set is kind of like, oh, here's why indie hackers is great, and here's what I like about it. And the other set is like, growth is a really big problem, and I feel, you know, paralysis about making decisions as a founder, and I don't know how to hire, et cetera. And so I wonder, you know, which set of problems should I be tackling? Should I be making indie hackers into something that helps founders solve their problems, or should I be sort of doubling down on the things that people like? If people like the inspirational parts of indie hackers, should I just do more of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's segmenting too, and understanding which one of those problems that an individual is trying to solve, or what they're there for, and then pointing them to those resources inside of the community. Because both can exist in the same place, but just making sure that they understand, that they know where those things are, so that the people who are looking for the tips and tricks and how other people are doing it aren't completely lost in a sea of like first timer questions and you know, more basic getting off the ground inspiration stuff. So they know exactly where to go and have it customized to them. And that's where a lot of, you know, segmenting can come in, is to know where they are in their journey. And then, even because of the nature of indie hackers, as they grow, continuing to check in with them on, is this still the right phase for you? Or have you moved into more of an inspiration phase? Because we can still serve you. And, you know, this is where, like, just checking in. I think of it, it's a lot like if you had an email service provider and you have a customer that starts out and their goal is to get 1,000 email subscribers, and then their business explodes and now they have 5,000 email subscribers. Well, their needs are a lot different than when they first joined, but they can still be a customer. And so just looking at, like, okay, well, where does churn impact us the most? Who, you know, who's going to have the biggest impact on us as a business? And making sure we're doing as much as we can for that cohort. But then also remembering we have people in various phases that come before and after that. And how do we serve them in a way that works for them and for us, meets the goals of the business, but also meets their goals?
Tough questions.
Yeah, it is.
It's
what I'm, it's a lot of what I'm like trying to, this is really helpful because it's what I'm putting into the report for you right now. And actually I have one more Indie Hackers interview right now.
Okay, yeah, it's 11:04. I'll let you go. Thanks so much, Val, for agreeing to do this office hours. Can you let viewers know where they can go to learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm at valgeisler.com, and you can download that dinner party strategy that I was talking about at valgeisler.com/TDPS.
All right. Thanks a ton, Val.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.